Hi, I'm Russ Segner. We put this series together to feature narrow gauge layouts, seldom seen because they are not located in cities where we normally visit for national narrow gauge conventions. Thanks to the organizing committee of Jerry Cornwell, Pete Smith, Mark Lachey, Dave Adams, and Jeff Schultz. Information on this program is available at NNG at groups.io. We hope you will join us. So now for our program.
Ken has been modeling the Colorado narrow gauge since 1977, first in HON3 and then in SN3. Ken is well known for his contest modeling, having twice won the Best of Show award at the National Narrow Gauge Convention, first in 1990 and then again in 2000. Ken's layouts have been featured in the Gazette, SN3 Modeler, Railroad Model Craftsman, and Model Railroader. He was recognized by the NMRA as a Master Model Railroader. He holds number 119. Following his retirement from ConocoPhillips in 2008, Ken and his wife Margaret moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where he is working on the latest edition of his SN3 Pandora and San Miguel Railway. Ken is always happy to welcome visitors to come and see and operate on his layout. And Ken is currently serving along with me as the co-chair of the 2021 Tulsa Union Convention. The convention is the joint production of the Indian Nations Division, Mid-Continent, and Lone Star regions of the NMRA. If you'd like to visit Ken and operate on his layout, we encourage you to take a look at our website where you can sign up, and that website is 2021tulsaunion.com. Ken, if you're ready, I'll turn the program over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome to the Pandora and San Miguel layout tour. As Mark said, I modeled the Rio Grande Southern SN3. It is September 15th and 16th, 1942. Many of the photos and information I'm going to be sharing can be found in the Gazette beginning in November 2016 and continuing on in January and March of 2017. The train room is located upstairs. All the wood, plaster, and tools have to go up the 18 steps to get to the train room. Once you get there, there's a duck under, which has 66-inch clearance. My wife can walk straight through. I have to kind of bob my head. And if I don't do that, I usually will remember the second time. This is what you see when you walk in. Most of the guys that operate on my layout are standard gaugers that come over to operate, and they walk in about 3 feet and they just stand there and look around, don't know what to do. It's a bit confusing, but I think we'll solve that problem in a bit. The train room is 23 by 23 and a half. It's 540 square feet. It's twice the size of my layout in Lake Jackson, if you'd seen it. When we retired, we moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and built a house with a train room. And I came with 4 different track plans that all modeled the same area. And I took the time at the beginning to actually draw these out on the floor and walk through them and have some friends come over and critique them. My favorite track plan was somewhat more complicated. It had smaller aisles and some places that were hard to reach. So I settled on this plan here, and it's worked out pretty well. Because I've built a couple of different layouts, some people seem to think that the layout just pops into being. That's not true at all. This is what it looked like in the beginning. It is double deck. The lower level is mostly L girder, which allows the fascia to fold freely around the room. The upper deck is supported by some heavy-duty steel L brackets, which are bolted directly onto the wall studs. A couple basic information slides. The scenery is hydrocal hard shell and molding plaster rock castings colored with tube acrylics. The hard shell is built up over mountainous volumes of crumpled newspaper and covered with strips of newspaper dipped into soupy hydrogel. I like the newspaper because it doesn't ball up and it retains its strength as opposed to what you get when you're using paper towels. All of the backdrop pictures you're going to be seeing were taken on September 15th and 16th, a couple of different trips to Colorado. There are about 4,000 bottle brush trees on the layout. And I do these a little differently. I cut the twine and I lay it out on a piece of newspaper. And then I twist a pair of floral wire together and use some 3M spray to spray along the inside edge. Press that down along the twine. Then you pick the whole thing up, put it in a vise, and use a drill to twist it together. And then the almost finished trees are sprayed either dark gray or dark brown. And I like this method because I can make 25 to 30 trees an hour. I'm going to take a quick walk around the track plan. When you come up the stairs, if you go to your right, you're in the workroom. If you come in left, you come in, there's a swing gate there that's always open. And you come under the duck under. Ridgeway is along the left wall. It's at 40 inches. We come around the San Miguel River to Vance Junction. And I seem to have everybody's faces over the rest of the layout. Come over to Ophir, Matterhorn and Ophir siding, and then around on the High Line. And then we come by the duck under again, and we're up on the upper level at this time at 72, actually 67 inches at Lizard Head, and it comes on around, and Rico sits right up on the top of Vance Junction. The clearance between the upper and lower level is around 26 inches. The 2 yards and the 3 passing areas are level. Other than that, the main line rises at a constant 2.5% grade that gets you the 26-inch clearance between the 2 levels. All right, now to actually begin the layout tour. We begin at Ridgeway on the lower level. I like lots of junk in my modeling. I use it to vary the color and the texture. The ground cover is decomposed granite. And in any place where it doesn't look right, I just add more junk. There are about 130 structures on the layout. 30 of them are craft kits and the other 100 are scratch built. Track is code 70 hand laid. The turnouts were mostly built at the workbench using fast track jigs. I found that is a great way to upgrade your track as opposed to being bent over the layout and trying to get turnouts to work. Being able to work on them in good light is really a plus. The roundhouse is a bandit kit. Has some very nice stone and rock work. Downsized it from 7 stalls to 4, but I did keep a goose stall over here. The turntable is a diamond scale model, 64 feet instead of 50, so I have some place to turn the K27s. This is what the track plan looks like if you take it and draw it in a single line. And what looks to be rather complicated when you walk in the room is really just a pretty simple layout. Another bandit kit. This was shortened about 4 inches, and I've also replaced the kit shingles with peel and stick cedar shingles. I've done that with a lot of buildings because it gives you a little bit more texture, and the cedar and the real wood tends to weather a lot better than paper. The Brunswick bar is a rags to riches kit. The vehicles are PBL and Railmaster. And I used to buy all sorts of packages of signs at the Narrow Gauge convention, but I found that you can find almost anything you're looking for out on the internet. You bring them in Photoshop and resize them and do a lot of stuff with that, because they add a lot of texture and a lot of color. And the weeds are woodland scenics. I tend to mix 2 or 3 different colors together to get a little bit more texture to it. All right, this is along the San Miguel River. The layout backdrop in this picture has been cleared out, and I've put another backdrop in. What you would see here instead is the bench work for Rico and the switch machines and the wiring and all that stuff hanging down from the top. So there's probably about 30% of the pictures you're seeing where I've replaced the backdrop, so you're not looking at the junk across the room. The water is a mixture of Envirotex, Mod Podge, and various glossy varnishes that I had left over in the garage. There's about 20 feet of river there, and I just used whatever I had, and it all kind of comes out looking a brown gunky stuff. The larger pine trees are the traditional balsa and caspia. Aspen trees are from Scenic Express, they're the super trees. And if you ask those people real nicely, they will send you a box of O-scale size trees. Otherwise, you get a box of a bunch of little bitty ones that aren't worth too much in that scale. This is at Primus. The ore bin is a Crystal River kit. We're around to Trestle 37B at Belk. The 454 is one of the PBL hybrid kits with cast metal frame. And it really runs well, probably better than the ones that are all built up out of brass. We're at Vance Junction now. All of these structures were scratch built. I think I did these about 2 years before Bill came out with all of his kits for these. So thank you, Bill. The section house was a contest model back in San Antonio. That's how long I've been working on the RGS. RGS is known for all of its big structures and trestles, but the little trestles and little things like this are good ways to divide the layout up and to provide some extra interest. The water here, I played around with that for about a year, adding dabs of water and clear silicone, and finally got to the point that it just looked so bad. I ripped the whole thing out and started over again. But the running water is a glossy clear silicone. It's kind of messy stuff to work with. This is at Ames. The water tank is a resin V&T kit. The scenes from a typical operation session. I guess it's typical. The only narrow gauger in the room is the one that's doing the rail fanning. Operations is by timetable of train order. The time is real, and actually I have 3 sets of timetables depending on whether we start at 9 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the afternoon or 7 in the evening. But the time really doesn't matter, because exactly like the prototype, the model, the trains are always operating late. The timetable is important though, because it tells the operators exactly who and where they have meets with. And I've gone to the trouble to color code. So for instance, if you're operating freight train 9 that goes from Ridgeway to Rico, you can look over here and see that you have a meet with train number 8 at Vance Junction, and another meet with train number 10 at Matterhorn. There is no interaction normally with the dispatcher. We do use a dispatcher, and I would say I normally keep the guy locked away in a closet downstairs, but he communicates by telegraph, and we'll typically run a stock extra sometime during the section, and all of the interface for that is by telegraph. Typically that information will show up on their clipboard with their information when they start out. Car forwarding is done by waybills. When I started out, I was handwriting switch lists, which are an easy and quick way to get an operating session going, but it was too easy, and the operators weren't having enough paper to shuffle. So we went to the waybills, and after working for a couple of weeks on getting the system up and organized, I realized that I had just reinvented car cards. Like the timetable, the waybills are color coded, so you always know which way you're going. And if you drop all your waybills on the floor, you can pick them up and figure out what you're going to do with them again. Now we're up to Ophir. Like a number of the other big buildings on the layout, the trestle was shortened a couple feet, so it's only 5 feet long. Downsizing some of the structures, I think, gives a little bit better scale to the layout. If I had about 3 or 4 times more room, I'd build things that are full size, but this helps things to kind of fit in and make them look like they fit in the scenery a little better, I think. And here's where we are on the layout. This is the flume that went down to Ames. It was built in place board by board, and it was kind of a cut and fit sort of thing. Not the sort of project that I'd recommend doing too much of. That provided water for a wheel that produced the first commercial AC in the country. Kind of an interesting thing that had happened out in the middle of Colorado. Now we're at Ophir proper. The Alta tram is covered with HO scale corrugated aluminum, and I use the Archer's etchant, and then I'll come back after the etching process and paint with Flocal any places that didn't get etched. I hate the look of the shiny metal when you're building something that's obviously old and dilapidated. And then I'll come back with acrylics and chalks and weather it down some more. The little building that you really can't see back there in the corner because everybody's covering it up is the quality store that Lynn Wickersham built for me. It provides the standard for detail and workmanship on the rest of the layout. So thank you for the building, Lynn. Another quick mini clinic. The coloring I use for all my cribbing and trestles and unpainted buildings is a mixture of tube acrylics, which I mix in alcohol. When you mix the tube acrylics in alcohol, it really doesn't want to mix up very well. So I put a couple marbles in to shake it up. And I begin by distressing the wood. And then I'll take a bundle of it and I'll put it in the bottle and shake it up good. And when you pull it out, what you get is this awful gooey mess. So you take your fingers and run them along the wood and you get this beautiful streaking and color like you see up in the high country in Colorado. Local 271 is a Railmaster kit. They recommend soldering these together with low temp solder, and I just couldn't make myself do that. Instead, I've been using JB Weld, which seems to be just about as strong as soldering, and it's held up pretty well. Matterhorn is actually a combination of Matterhorn and the Ophir siding. The mill here is one of my 2 contest models that won Best to Show at the Narrow Gage. it turns out that it's almost the same size and shape building as the mill that actually sat at Matterhorn, although the interior operations and milling process is entirely different. This is a traditional 20 stamp mill, and the equipment inside is mostly things from Western scale models. Now, we've just come through the one and only very unprototypical tunnel on the layout to the bridges on the High Line. This is 46A. I made a styrene jig for the concrete foundations. And on the inside of the jig, I spaced individual pieces of styrene far enough apart that you can see the plaster of the concrete kind of oozing out between the boards, like it might on the prototype. Here's 46A in front and 46C slightly behind. 46D was built as it was originally constructed. This trestle also was shortened by about 3 or 4 bents, although the howe trusses are full size. I used a lot of small pine trees around the top of the scenery to help blend the real scenery in with the backdrop. That seemed to be one way to try to blend the two together. The other thing about the backdrops is they served as a standard for the coloring for the rest of the layout, and they were put in before the most of the rock castings were in and before they were colored. So you always had something to look at to compare what you're doing. The RGS story in volume 3 shows one faraway picture of a sawmill at Lizard Head. The mill was probably only there for a year or two before it was moved to a different location. But it was a nice excuse to build a sawmill. The model is based on some articles by Jack Work in Model Railroader back in 1968. And the machinery is O scale, but it's pretty good size for S scale, and it's from Sierra West Models. Okay, now we're up on the upper level. We have just walked by the duck under. This is right at 67 inches above the floor. The snow bins by 1942, a good portion of them where they used to cover the Y and the siding, a good portion of them by that time had either fallen down or been burnt down, so you don't have to model quite as much of it. The smaller buildings back here are some, they were by the Building and Structure Company. And again, I've replaced some of the shingling on these buildings with the cedar shingles. And this is the actual backdrop for Lizard Head that curves around. There's about 25 or 30 feet, close to 30 feet in length, and 2 pieces there, the backdrop. Around 1939, the RGS purchased a group of what was mostly stock cars and box cars from the CNS, the so-called Miller cars. And I've extended history just a bit by including a couple of the CNS locals and a couple of caboose and a passenger car or two. The CNS locals make a nice contrast to the RGS. Burns was the last little town before you got to Rico. There's not a whole lot of information, a lot of pictures. So this was an excuse to kind of make up what I was doing, had a place to put some structures that might not otherwise have found a place on the layout. The little gas station there is was built from plans and photos by Chuck Doan. All of my locos have tsunami decoders, lights, and sound. Most of the geese and some of the locos also have current keepers. I run Digitrax on the layout, and I just recently increased I went from the N scale setting to the HO setting, which gets you up to about 14 volts. And that's critical because that's where the current keepers seem to charge up and work good. The N scale setting was giving me about 11 volts, and they would never charge up and work. But when I made that change, I had to go back around and change all the resistors on the lights and every loco on the layout. So that was a fun project. Ore bins at Burns. And now we're to Rico. The engine house was a kit that, well, again, you may not be able to see it over here, it's hidden. It was a kit that Jim Wild came out with several years ago. And I did it full length, but I only put two of the three stalls on the layout, save space. The water tank is another Crystal River kit, and it's been modified to match the framing for the Rico tank. I like to weather my models sometimes almost to excess. You can tell this was a PPL foreground model because it's still moderately clean. And this thing here looks like it's about ready to go into the shop. Typically on an operating session, we'll run 2 of the geese as a pasture train. And, some poor unsuspecting guy that's never operated with the Digitrax throttles will have to figure out how to use a double throttle on those. This is down on the end of Rico. This is looking at the same scene from both directions. The hotel was built based on the familiar Thomas York kit. He'd been promising an S scale model, but it never materialized. And then a different Tom is a local modeler that's operated on the layout a number of times. He's yet to figure out that he's the local barber. So you'll see that one of these days. The little blue house, that was built from plans by Joe Correa in a little paperback book called Structures of the Early West. It was located in Silverton originally. The little shed down here was a bicycle shop in Telluride. And finally, we get to the most important slide of the bunch. This is the reason I got talked into doing this. As Mark was explaining, we are having a joint NMRA convention. It is now in October 6th through the 10th. Sometime tonight, please go out and take a quick look at the website. It's www.2021tosaunion.com. We think we're going to have a great slate of clinicians. Contest should be pretty good with 2 regions involved. And we've got a great group of layouts. These are mostly the same layouts that participated last year in ProRail. And we will be having operating sessions. The guys are all geared up for that, and they're going to be ready to go after all this hunkering down. So give us a look on the website.
Again, this is Mark. We've got a couple of questions, if you don't mind, that are popped up in the chat box.
Okay, I got one more slide.
Go ahead.
That's good. All right.
First question, what's your grass made of?
That is Woodland Scenics. I tried one time or another. I tried all sorts of different things, but when this came out, it works really well. You fiddle with the package where you pull out just a little string at a time, and you have to get your hands and fingers and scissors into a kind of a rhythm where you pull it out, chop it off, stick it in the glue, and stick it on the layout. You definitely do not drill a hole and stick it in the hole. You just pop it in as quick as you can, and in 10 seconds, if you don't do 3 or 4 clumps of this stuff, you're working too slow.
Next question from David Woodhead up north of the border. He says, great sunlight on the photos. Is that layout lights or something else special?
If you remember back when I said we're actually starting the layout tour, all of the real pictures that look like this, those were all taken setting up photo floods, turning off the layout lighting. The layout lights, the lighting you saw on the layout tour, and a couple of those early pictures where you were looking at, large chunks of layout, that was under the fluorescence. You can definitely see the difference in the color and the setting up the lights the right way. You can get a little bit of shadows and make the detail pop a lot more. My objective in doing this, probably 80% of the people that have come to the layout have come to operate. And when they look at the layout, they're looking at the train and their paperwork, and they could care less whether there's even any scenery on the layout. So they're content to walk around and see what's there. And like I say, they're pretty much oblivious to the modeling and the backdrops. For most of the people that see something of the layout, they're seeing it in magazines or in photographs at the convention. And for that, I want to have a very particular controlled view of what they can see. And the photography and the view from the photographs, to me, is as important as the modeling work itself. I don't know if that answers your question or not. That's maybe a lot more than you wanted to know.
Ken, there's 3 questions that are kind of related. I'm going to kind of blend them together. One comment from David Woodhead again, the sense of distance is extraordinary. Larry McDonald asks, how or whose backdrops do you use? You blend so well into the backdrops, best I've ever seen. And then a question from Robin Peel about great photos with excellent depth of field. So my guess is you're using some software to get to the depth of field in the photos. Am I correct on that?
Yes. The answer to both of those involves Photoshop, but they're 2 separate things. The backdrop pictures I took all myself. They were on 2 trips to Colorado in September 15th and 16th. That's why the layout is dated where it is. The longest backdrops are about 20 feet long, and they probably have anywhere from 18 or 20 different shots that were taken vertically. At that time, I was using a 6-meg camera, and if you took the shots vertically, you could print them as large as 17 inches tall before they started to pixelate. But Photoshop has some programs that allow you to stitch those together, and that was a good learning process. I worked on the backdrops for almost a year to get them presentable. A local modeler here, Randy Smith, had a printer, and he graciously printed these for me. I paid him for ink and paper, but he took care of all the printing for me, which is really a big help. The model photography, besides setting up the lights, you have to have a real camera and put it on a tripod. And I take multiple shots at various focus depths. And then you put those together on your computer with a program called Helicon Focus. if you're interested in doing this kind of thing, Hillock and Focus, go to their website. I think it was started by some Russians who were trying to get good depth of field with microscopes. The depth of field problem there is even worse than mall railroading. This particular scene you're looking at here is 20 feet deep, and you can see the weeds up here in front are in focus, and everything here in back it's getting a little small and hard to see. It is still in focus, and the Hillock and Focus will allow you to do that. The only thing that's limiting factor is how good your camera and your lens are.
Ken, one last question from Scott Groff. He says, this looks like a finished layout. Do you have any plans for something else after this layout?
There's always dreaming, but I haven't gotten that desperate yet. Probably about the first 4 years that we lived here after retirement, I worked like a dog day and night on this thing. And I'm not sure why I did that. I should have spaced it out a bit more, but the last couple of 3 years, I've spent a lot more time doing photography and doing some other things. I've jokingly told Lynn that if I was to change, I'd probably go to G scale. So that would be a drastic change, I think.
Well, very good. Thank you so much, Ken. We appreciate it. Russ, are you ready to move on to our next segment?
Yes, thank you very much, Ken. The photography and your layout and the pictures of it are just overwhelming. And I'm sure everybody has really, really enjoyed this. And I suspect a few more folks might show up in Tulsa. You never know.
Well, we'd hope so. Everybody's welcome to come in October.
All right. Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
Go ahead on the video.
Yeah.
Okay. This isn't working too good.
It's fine.
All right. Should report that back.
Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
We hope you enjoyed this. We look forward to seeing you again. The next session will be posted on the group's IO NNG several days before the next program. Look for the link there.